what your retirement spending really will be. It will really be this, because we have data. We have data showing retiree spending. And I know I've done this video 1,000 times. I'm going to keep clobbering this until other people show me other data. And I've yet to see any. I gotta look at that. Look at right there. I've yet to see any. And people say, oh, but Josh, what about healthcare? That's not part of the data. What about this? Or they'll say, oh, but this is going to happen. Just show me the data. Show me the data. Not speculation. I want to see the data. So we're going to look at this right here. Spending trajectories after a 65, variation by initial wealth. By the two crushers of all crushers, Michael Hurd and Susan Rowetter, and they're married couple. And I call her Susan Rottweiler. Never met her because they're taking on the freaking financial negative Nellies, and it's fantastic. So Andrew Biggs from AEI, he knows these guys. He says they're crushers. So I've been talking about these guys for years, and they just kick ass and take names. So the abstract. This is written just in 2023, so just this past year, because this is 2024. There has been extensive research on the importance for saving for retirement and on tools to support the accumulation of retirement wealth. Much less attention has been paid to the decumulation phase, all right? Understanding the decumulation phase, i.e. spending down your assets, requires information about the spending patterns of older households and how those patterns evolve with age. This study uses comprehensive longitudinal data, which means they follow people year after year, on total household spending from a survey that's representative of the older U.S. population to estimate the trajectories of spending after the age of 65 years old. Based on data, I said, give me data that proves this otherwise, or at least challenges. Literally, I've been begging and begging and begging. You can say all day long that all this stuff is hogwash, malarkey, as Snippy Joe will say. Show me the friggin' evidence, man. I'm not against looking at evidence, but no one ever does. It's weird. Based on our data, we observe. Based on data spanning the period of 2005 to 2019, real spending declined for both single and coupled households at age 65 and after by about 1.7%. and 2.4% respectively. So for real spending, that's adjusted for inflation. Single households declined their spending by 1.7. Married couples declined their spending by 2.4. All right. Now you might say, well, because they're running out of money, as people used to do in the past. I've talked about this before in my books and whatnot. They don't do that so much anymore because they just have no evidence on their own side. They have the evidence. All the data is on our side. But they show increases with age in the budget share for gifts and donations, which suggests that economic position on average does not deteriorate with age, even as spending declines. All right, let's keep going. There's a lot of good stuff in here. And don't forget to subscribe. Are you not subscribed? 57% or something like that of the people on this channel are not subscribed. How double dog dare you? Subscribe. What color are my eyes? Oh, looks like two different colors, doesn't it? That's because the light's over there. That's kind of creepy. One's like a blue, a greenish, and one's like a brownish. Oof. Like those dogs have two different color eyes. Kind of creepy. But I still love them because dogs crush. The most widely used economic theory to study the decumulation, spending down your assets, is the life cycle model, which was emphasized the uncertainty about survival. And that was published in 1965 by some guy named Yari. All right. In the model's simplest form, as applied to a single person, individuals do not derive any utility from contemplating a bequest to survivors. So they didn't really care about leaving wealth. They have no bequest motive. Therefore, wealth not consumed is wasted. So the old model of life cycle models has said, if you don't spend all your money, you've wasted wealth. You're giving it to somebody else to spend. No, that's because there's no bequest model, if that makes sense. Now, I have a bequest model, or I have some utility from leaving money to my kids, and certainly to my wife if I die, for sure. So that's not going to be applicable here, but that's what the old decumulation model would show. And then we go on to say, the relationship between mortality risk and spending by couples is more complex than the life cycle model of not leaving anything to a downstream. They're not bequesting anything because you have a surviving spouse. Because of the necessity of providing for the surviving spouse. But also, In this model, couples would choose a spending path that declines, at least eventually, even with the bequest to the surviving spouse. At advanced old age, the marginal utility of wealth to the surviving spouse declines because of their short life expectancy, causing the couple to consume more earlier. So there's a lot to unpack there. As you get older, Josh and Charlotte, as we get beyond 75 to 85, we're going to live less. If I die at 85, Charlotte's not going to have that many years ahead of her, all right? So it becomes less utility for me to leave a bigger wealth to her because she has less years left, if that makes sense. So what the maximum utility would be for both of us to spend more while we're young and can enjoy it. Because the older we get, the less of a bequest motive there is. Now, there's still going to be some. I don't want her to be eating freaking, what's the World Economic Forum? He wants to eat crickets. I don't want her to eat crickets. But at the end of the day, it's because she's not going to be around as long. Now, if I die at 65, she could be around for another 25 years. So there's a bigger bequest motive. The spending path of the household will decline at widowing. So I die. Now, Charlotte, her spending path still declines because of the reduction in household size. She doesn't have to feed your old buddy Josh. Thus, couples should anticipate a declining spending path over the lifetime of the household, including that of the surviving spouse, because you're going to consume more when you're young and dumb and you're just starting out retirement. And then you're going to consume less and less and less, and you're going to have less of a bequest model as well. So your spending is going to go down, and there's not as much marginal utility in terms of value for spending more. The economic theory just outlined concerns the spending or consumption path. Its level and shape. The economic theory just outlined concerns the spending or consumption path. Its outline and shape. It is worth noting that the theory is not about the wealth path. That path is determined from the spending path. So your wealth is a factor of they're like a symbiotic relationship. Your wealth is derived from your spending. So the spending comes first. Thus, common rules of thumb, such as decumulate wealth at 4% per year, are not consistent with the optimization of life cycle models. They're just not. Decumulate at 4% a year are not maximum wealth or spending utility. They're just not. Similarly, in the income replacement rate, which is a common method of measuring economic preparation for retirement, is not consistent with life cycle models either. To move beyond such rules of thumb, we need to study actual, that is, observed spending paths and establish whether they constitute a useful guide for others in their financial planning for retirement. The simple life cycle model does not predict variation by education, but such variation is to be expected because of the correlation between education and mortality risk. On average, individuals with more education face lower mortality risk. They're going to live longer. And so their optimal spending path should decline more slowly than that of individuals with less education who face higher mortality risk. So if you're going to live longer, and I talked about this in the earlier video I did today, if you're going to live longer, you should spend less on the front end because you have longer time for that money to last. You need to last longer. If you're not going to live longer, you should spend more money now because you're not going to be around that long, if that makes sense. However, recent work has suggested an alternative and additional reason for spending declines. Budget shares, this is pretty interesting. I actually want to pause it real quick. Budget shares, they use the example for traveling, suggest that reductions in some categories are due to declining health. For example, the budget share for trips and vacation declines with your age. It's going to be hard to get around. More generally, marginal utility could also decline with age because of changed circumstances, such as widowing. So if Charlotte and I were traveling to Dublin, I'm not going by myself. I'm not doing anything by myself. I'll go to Costco, and that's it. I'm not going anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So my utility for traveling, if Charlotte deceases before I do, I'm not doing nothing. All right? Or perhaps as more travel is, this is huge, as more travel is accumulated, the utility of travel declines. You've said, man, I've talked to people all the time. They're traveling all over the place and say, yeah, we've already been to Greece. We've already been here. We've already been there. We don't need to go back. Maybe we'll go back to France at one point, but we've already been there and we don't want to go back. The utility of increasing travel declines because they've already accumulated it. And when did they accumulate it? They accumulated it when they were young in retirement, if that makes sense. If individuals are aware of the marginal utility spending on some categories will decline with age, They will bring that spending forward, i.e., I know as I get older, I'm not going to want to travel as much because my health is going to decline. So I'm going to bring that spending that I would have done in the future forward, so I can do it now. I can enjoy it. And then later on, I've already done that. I don't need to go back to Cancun. I've no desire at all. I've been there once. Don't need to go again. You see what I'm saying? All right. An alternative explanation for declining budget shares is a worsening of economic resources with age. All right. However, the budget share for gifts and donations increases with age, which would suggest a decline in spending for such categories as trips and vacations is not because restrictive budget. Rather, people travel early when health is good, and worsening health leads to decreased spending on travel. With respect to savings for retirement, if a declining path is forced because of increasingly stringent budget constraint, i.e. you run out of money, the path may point to undersaving. If the declining path is due to change in marginal utility of spending with age, the declining path would not be evidence of the undersaving. So again, as we always talk about here, I'm not going to say you're saving too much, but the idea that, oh my goodness, I'm going to run out of money, I'm going to increase my spending, saving. You have two choices. Either it's forced upon you because of budget constraints, you run out of money. How many people does that happen to? Or it's due to marginal utility of spending with age. The declining path of spending with age would not be evidence of undersaving, which is actually what's happening. So all these people say, retirement, oh my goodness, no one's saving enough. It's just not true. The motivations for the classification by wealth near retirement, initial wealth, are first to address the question of whether the observed spending decline are due to an increasing tight budget, run out of money. Let's see here. So right here. We find that spending declines with age and that the rate of decline is approximately independent of initial wealth. The importance of the latter result is that it provides evidence that the spending decline is observed broadly across wealth factors. You can be rich and your spending declines. You can be poor, your spending declines. Across all socioeconomic status groups, and therefore does not appear to be forced on most households because of lack of economic resources. Rather, it is a result of a choice of trading off how much to consume earlier versus how much later in retirement. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. I'd love to hear it, man. Prove me wrong. All right. Love your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe. God bless. We'll see you.